You get in early on a brand, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be willing to sit there on some days where you're going, oh my God, what did I do? I'm finally getting to enjoy the fruits of my labors of being an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Welcome back to Kim Daily TV. Today, my special guest is a former candidate, now franchisee. He's about two and a half years in. He's going to share his very fun and pioneering story with a brand new concept. I want to tell a little bit about my story, though, with this candidate. His name is Dave Weaving. Dave, welcome to Kim Daily TV.
Thanks, Kim. Happy to be here.
So before I give you the opportunity to tell your side of the story, I want to tell your story, the story that I remember. And it's funny that I worked with you over a couple of years ago, but I remember certain things about everybody I work with. So I meet this guy, he's former Wall Street, he's looking for, something new, something he can get passionate about for his future. And I say to him, "Hey, Dave, there's this thing called stretching." Right? It is a brand new franchise coming out where it's a membership for stretching. He's like, stretching? So, and I think what happened is, and he's going to correct me, but my memory says you kind of left the call like, I don't really know about that thing. But as you were driving around your community, you noticed for the first time, probably something that had been there for a while, a little mom and pop stretching place. So you went in, you made an appointment, you had a stretch, you came back to me 1 or 2 weeks later and said, "Oh my God, this is the greatest thing. I'm all in. Let's dive into this brand and let's go." So, is my memory serving me right or wrong?
It's in a very good spot on most of it, though. Here's the really crazy part. My first studio turns 4 this year.
Oh my gosh, that was 4 years. My memory's even better than I thought.
Well, but you're dead on right. You threw this idea at me, and I remember you talking about the concept of this is going to blow up like Club Pilates did, and you want to get in early. And I'll be the first to admit, and I use this phrase now when I talk to people. Stretching concept been around forever. Stretching as a business, no. And I did go to that place, got stretched, and went, yeah, that is what I need. And when I sit on Zoom interviews with potential employees, I tell them who are your customers? I said, I am. Yeah, we have members, and I have members today ranging from 12 to 94. But where's my sweet spot? 40 to 60, has some money, probably should have spent a little more time in their 20s and 30s stretching. And
that would be like everybody.
And that's why I like it. If you're inactive, you need it. If you're very active, you need it. We are an equal split male-female. So as much as my yoga friends and Pilates owners tell me that, they serve everybody, I'm like, nah, But the interesting thing that you might not have known at the time was I was evaluating a number of different franchises. And to the point where I was talking to so many folks from the St. Gregory group with Lance's crew that I was getting confused who I was talking to. And I approached
Well, I introduced you to more than one concept, but I've been in love with Xponential Fitess and which is the parent organization that Dave is part of with his franchise called the StretchLab. I'm the number one consultant in the world placing people into exponential brands. They have, I think, 12 different modalities today. It's, Lance, the president of development, has been a guest multiple times right here on Kim Daily TV. So I love to promote what Expo does. And that's why I believed in stretch even before stretch was really a thing. So I'm glad that it was 4 years ago because that just further cements that we need to have this conversation. And what happened, guys, is that Dave sent me an email not too long ago and said that he wasn't so happy in the beginning, but he's really happy now. And I said, oh, let's get in the studio and record this conversation. So I want to get into the meat of it, Dave. When you sent me that email and you were saying, I wasn't so happy in the beginning, but I am now, what did you mean?
Well, and I can tell you what's interesting, particularly in the exponential world. We are an odd duck in their world in that our business is one on one, not group exercise. And admittedly, the folks that they brought in and they thought they were going to get group stretching going, and they didn't think it would be the majority of the business, but they thought it'd be some of the business. And so I've never owned my own business. I retired from corporate America 5 years ago, was clearly bored out of my mind. I said, all right, I'm smart. I can figure this out. And I'll admit, they were trying to apply some of the group exercise concepts to a one on one business. And so I followed the playbook. It wasn't working. I didn't necessarily know who to hire at the time. So I opened my first studio on November 1st, 2018. First StretchLab studio opened on the planet as a franchisee. Never gets tired telling people that. I opened my second one. I opened my
Hey,
second.
wait, and I never get tired of taking the credit either.
Absolutely. And well, you had said get in early, get the best territory. So for any of your program listeners who know Northern New Jersey, I bought the Route 24 corridor. And anybody who's in Northern New Jersey go, yeah, that's a good place to be. And what was interesting, I opened my second one in just before Labor Day in 2019, and I had people going, "So it's working?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Well, why did you open the second one?" I said, "I can't test things in one location. If I have two places, I can at least test different things out." And that was important. And admittedly, I it took me until February of 2020 till I had a month where both of my studios made money in the same month. And then we took a 4 month break. Well,
Called the pandemic.
and I will tell you, for a business that you only make money when you have people touching somebody, the pandemic was actually one of the best things that happened to me. It got me to rethink everything from hours of operation, management structure. Most of my staff fled, so I got to revisit that. Um, and so I came back out and rebuilt it. And it took some time because I probably lost 50% of my revenue coming out of the gate. And it was challenging to actually sit here and go, do I really want to climb up the hill again? As a sidebar, I took that time to actually start a master's program, and I got my master's degree in May in a completely unrelated field.
Well, congratulations.
And honestly, that was my pivot if this thing didn't work. Then, around this time last year in 2021, it started clicking. People were comfortable coming out when vaccines first became available. People were willing to come out of their shells. We'd been around for a while, so it wasn't quite so new. Spending a little less time explaining what a one on one assisted stretch is. And it started taking off. And so that led me to actually opening my third studio, which I just opened in May. And, frankly, that's in a town called Summit, New Jersey, which I think we're going to do very well in. And I hate to actually say this to you, Ken, but I've actually already asked the question, what's left in the state of New Jersey, about looking for potentially other locations.
Well,
Because
that's a great
think
question to ask.
I think I figured it out. And so, one of the things that was an aha moment for me was when I was talking to Verdine Baker, who's now the president of StretchLab. And Verdine and I were chatting one day, and I said, I thought I was in the stretching business that sold memberships. I realize I'm in the membership sales business that actually provides stretching. And he said to me on the other end of the phone, well, it took you long enough to figure it out, but you figured it out. And
Customer acquisition is what owning a business is all about. No matter how we say it, that's what he's saying, guys.
and I'll tell you, like, here's another piece of advice for anybody getting into this space, particularly as a first time entrepreneur. Don't pay attention to the small stuff. If it doesn't matter how good my spreadsheets are that track the business and anything else that I do about the business, if you're not growing revenue. My area general manager, her offer letter, the first line right after dear staff was, the primary goal of this position is to grow revenue through membership sales, period. Now I'm pleased to offer you the chance to come join me. And, honestly, I've learned if you have to decide to run fully staffed, partially staffed, staff lightly. stuff still gets kicked up to you as the owner. But I get asked the question from other owners now, and this is probably a good takeaway on this. I've had people look at me and go, all right, your numbers are pretty consistent. It might not be the top, but I've got one studio that's in the top 25, two that are around the median. My newest studio is break even in its second month, including the rent load. Those of you doing this for the first time will know what I mean by that. Um, and my margin on my two existing studios is averaging about 30%. And Kim knows that's a good number anywhere in these spaces.
It's a good number anywhere. And, for those listening too, don't panic when you hear like 4 years and he's just figuring it out. We cannot minimize the fact that was not only a pioneering brand, but it was a pioneering thing. It's sort of like the only thing to equate it to on a mass level is like, remember when Massage Envy first came out, right? And everybody was like, well, what do you get for a membership for massage? I think that that's the exact equivalent of the story Dave has been having to have with people about what do you get? What does that mean, a membership for massage? So when there's that education in the marketplace, it takes time. But because he got in early and secured some of the best territories in his market, now that the world is waking up 3, 4, 5 years, and this scenario is not for everybody. It's not for everybody financially, it's not for everybody mentally or emotionally. But if you're hardy and you love the idea of getting in on the ground floor, think of the ground floor people who got in with like big brands like Planet Fitness or Orange Theory Fitness, right? There's a moment when the brand becomes a thing where people like members start raising their hands saying, I want to own one of these, and there's no more territory. And that's when those owners who first got in early with the pioneering territory typically have their greatest exit strategy moment. Not to say that Dave's going to want to sell someday, but should he decide he wants to at some point, there will be a point in time where before the competition floods the market and StretchLab is the brand because they're already the premier brand in this new thing, then he would have that greatest exit strategy moment at that time. So let's not minimize that and get too nervous and go, oh, franchising isn't for me. It takes 4 years. Like, no, it's
I
because
was,
he got in as a pioneer of a very new thing.
yeah, and let me just add on to that. The studio is turning 4. It's in a very healthy spot and has been that way for over a year. My second studio, the one in Morristown, has been frankly pretty solid all the way through. And I could tell you the new studios that are opening now in StretchLab because I talked to probably half the owners in our network. The new studios are getting to break even couple of months. So it
Right.
really is working. We collectively pulled together, and it was funny. Just last Friday, I had a lunch meeting at my club with 6 other owners in New Jersey. And I kicked it off by saying, it's nice to have you all here because I've been having this meeting for the last 4 years, but I was basically sitting at the bar by myself because I was the only person in my state. And it was blowing up in other states. And I was like, what's wrong with us? But I can tell you that we're going to go from 2018, 1 studio, 2019, 2 studios, 2020, 3 studios, but they're in South Jersey. We don't count them. To this time next year, there'll probably be 25 that are actually under contract, assuming they all open. And Xponential does a great job of staying with you to make sure you open. My whole business philosophy that I chat with everybody is flexibility, fun, and family. That's how we make decisions. And
Flexibility, fun, and family.
yep,
I
that
love
when I
no
started,
little pun intended on that one, I'm sure.
absolutely, you can do a lot. You can do a lot with this business in terms of puns. But I'll tell you, whenever I'm trying to make any decision, a personnel decision, a member decision, anything, I go, how does it fit into one of those 3 things? And then I make a decision. And you don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, my general manager got asked the question, or I got asked the question at our lunch last week. So how many like real hard member issues do you have to deal with? And I went, Steph, how many do we have to deal with in a typical week? She goes, 1, 2, and most of them you can solve. And that's to give you a feel. I've got between my 3 studios now, a little over 800 members. And it's very stable. what you get. And one of the great things, actually, particularly about our StretchLab family, and maybe it works this way in other brands, is we really do reach out and support each other. If you've got a question, there's somebody to ask. I got asked the question, who do you go to for signs? I'm like, all right, I realize the expo people won't like that I'm not using their sign vendor, but my landlord made me use their sign vendor. I was like, the guy did a great job. He took me right to the last minute, but I actually had the permanent sign on grand open day. And that doesn't always happen. Particularly if your elapsed time from signing the lease to open is under 3 months, because
Wow.
that's how I roll. Somebody looked at me and how did you get it open that fast? I said, well, I knew it was going to open, so I started ordering everything ahead of time. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
finding a place to do it, and that's one of those things you learn as you go through this. You would never order the flooring for your first studio before you actually sign the lease, but if your flooring is one of the critical components to getting your place open. But you learn by the time you get to your third one or fourth one, that you go, yeah, all right, just send me the stuff. I can put it in my garage. I'll take it out of my garage and drop it off when we need it. And it's that type of thinking that changes how you go about things. Another example, we're in a people-centric business. First 2 years, it was try to hire when you thought you needed someone based upon volume. Changes and things that I've learned. I meet a qualified candidate, I hire him, I put him in the studio, and you know what we're going to find out? Our members vote with their backsides where they want to get stretched. And if you think you have somebody with a full bench and you put somebody else new next to them, you're going to find out if they really had a full bench. And that's okay.
Survival of the stretch, the flexologist over there.
I will tell you, on a panel at our convention last year, I actually described it as the flexologist Hunger Games.
That's amazing. I love it. Oh, Dave, this is so great. So, what are you looking forward to? There were so many things I wanted to say in there. Actually, before I ask you my next question, let me just say a couple of things as the daily coach. So, he's talking about working on his business rather than in his business as he turns his head and says to his employees or his manager, what's the answer to that question? Because as the CEO of this, I don't really know, right? He's talking about the franchising is in business for yourself, but not by yourself. There's always somebody who has an answer to a question that you have. He's talking about wealth is created through scale. And we're not just talking about money wealth, we're talking about knowledge that is wealth, right? So the first one is the hardest, it takes the longest. And then with each one that you open, like raising kids, right? The first one changes your life the most. By the time you get to 4, nobody really cares anymore. They just fall in line. That's what my mother says. So I wasn't number 4, by the way.
I am the fourth.
Yeah, so it probably shows in your personality too. I'll ask your siblings. But so that's what he's talking about, guys. All the things you hear me talk about on Kim Daly TV, he's validating in the real world that this is true. This is how it happens. It's just beautiful, beautiful validation. So, my final question for you, Dave, today is: so, what are you looking forward to at this moment? You mentioned maybe looking for additional territories, but anything else you want to add to that or expand on that?
Well, I think really one of the best things is I'm finally getting to enjoy the fruits of my labors of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. So let me give you a perspective on that. There were definitely times I was working in my business, not on my business. I've gotten to the point I get asked the question by people on a regular, other owners on a regular basis. So how much time do you spend in studio? And I said, do I count when I'm getting stretched, or do I not count when I'm getting stretched? And they said, without. I said, I probably average 90 minutes a day, maybe.
Total
Maybe. Yeah,
or per studio?
between three. No, no, between three studios. Yeah, there are days I don't go to some of my studios because I've got it figured out. So by enjoying the fruits now, the things like, okay, I had a kid who was studying abroad. We're going to go meet him on the back end. So I went to Madrid 3 days after I opened my third studio because I could.
Wow,
Two
that's
weeks
pretty
later,
good.
2 weeks later, I went and met another kid in Paris. Took 12 days off around July 4th this year. I've already got 3 trips scheduled to California, going to see my beloved Jets on an away game this year. You know, I'm getting to actually
Jets? Wait a minute. Okay, well, you're New York, New Jersey. I gotta
yeah,
give it to you, but,
hey, we are long-suffering people, but we enjoy it. But it's being able to actually go, I can get away. If you have the right people, and I think I've got some of the right people down, you can absolutely get this to a point of doing things. Now, let me give you an example slightly on the other side. As we like to describe it, I'm a recovering accountant. Um, and so, like, I still do payroll. And somebody said, "You do the payroll?" I said, "Yeah, I do the payroll because it's my one chance to really kind of check every 2 weeks, forces me to go stare at some of the numbers. I learn things about people and how they do based upon, bonuses and things that I have to give them. Oh, not enough people earn bonuses. It means we're not doing well on certain things. And it's one of the things that I do. And people are like, really? Like, yeah, because it also allows me to go back to that general manager who's first line in her job. Her job is not to do back office, it's to sell. And so, try to get the things off of her plate so that she can be the rock star that she is.
I would give you more credit. I would say it is about having the right people, but it's also about your leadership over those people and the culture that you must be building among them, that even when you're gone for 12 days, they're still doing their job and working hard in the business. So they've got to be happy employees too, which comes back to you.
Well, and I'll give you an example of something that I'm going to be rolling out at our company-wide barbecue in 2 weeks, and I'm putting in place an annual employee recognition award based upon longevity and their anniversary dates. And the point of it is, look, I'm in the fitness space. The fitness space is a very transient workforce. If I can do things that actually get people to want to stay working for us longer, that's a great thing. I actually have a flexologist who's already passed, StretchLab is new. My studio hasn't hit 4 years old. I have an employee who's already hit his third anniversary. And he's been promoted twice. And, you know, he gets it. And he understands, hey, this isn't too bad. It's not, his job is not crazy, crazy hard. And he gets paid pretty well. And I like being able to do that. I like the fact that I was able to add, when I started this, it was hire everybody on a part time basis and hope nobody actually ever asked for benefits. Now I've evolved to I have a medical plan. I'm hiring more full time employees. Still figuring out how to get them on the medical plan, but hey, um,
One step at a time.
but it's about being able to build something where you can have people really making. I have employees who become very good friends with each other, which is a
Mhm.
really positive
That's a
opportunity.
strong bonder,
Yes.
right? They like to come to work and work with people they enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, as a sidebar, I was meeting my lead sales guy, my general manager for lunch the other day at a restaurant. Like I'm walking in, it's pretty, it's August in New Jersey, nobody's in any place, and he's talking to two of my flexologists who are sitting there having lunch. I'm like, did we invite more people and nobody told me? It was like, no, they were getting together for lunch. It just happened to be in the same place.
Oh, that's fun.
So you do the right
That's
thing in
fun.
that situation. I called their waiter over, handed him my credit card, and took care of their lunch too.
Oh,
Because
what a
that's
good
what you
boss.
do. That's what you do for family.
Dave, it's awesome. It's all so good. So, I think there was one thing that you said you wanted to say that you haven't said yet about being a pioneer.
Yes, and this is true. Particularly, you get in early on a brand. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to be willing to sit there on some days where you're going, "Oh my God, what did I do?" But stick it out because if the concept is good, it'll take time to catch on. We had to explain what an assisted stretcher. What do you do there? We do one-on-one assisted stretching, and you'd get a dead blank stare. You go, now you'd like me to actually explain what one-on-one assisted stretching means, and you're going to hit positives, negatives, things that go on. Frankly, as long as you're not shut down from a pandemic, anybody who's coming after this has got it easy. Yeah. We closed up shop and had no idea when we were going to open again, and it's a
That's not for the faint of heart.
oh, no, but I'll tell you, I'm having
But you
fun.
survived. You
Yeah, and
survived,
and I
and
will
you're
and I will tell
thriving.
you, those of you here listening on Kim Daly TV, listen to her. She knows what she's talking about.
Oh, Dave, that's awesome. Well, on that note, I think we'll end this conversation. For anybody who this conversation has inspired, if you are ready to begin your franchise exploration journey and you would like my help, My name is Kim Daly, and I want to be your daily coach. Please follow the email on the screen below or reach out at inquire@kimdaly.tv.